Okay, look. I'm not going to say this is how it is, but I wanted to react to the idea that this is what it could be. Because I know Vancouver Canucks fans are not going to like hearing this. Heck, I didn't like reading this when I saw it on my Twitter feed, but I wanted to respond to it because that's essentially what I do here on this YouTube channel. I read stuff, I reply to them, and I react and I give my thoughts. That's not really any new news after all, but yeah, we're talking about the Canucks, and we're also talking about this guy. A player whose reputation has really taken a... what's the opposite of a parabola? An upside-down negative parabola over the past few years. Jonathan Huberdeau of the Calgary Flames was, once upon a time, one of the best players in the National Hockey League. He had 115 points in 80 games played back in 2021-2022. He exploded after being a 92-point guy, dipping down to some lower point production years because of health complications, and then blowing everything out of the water for a 115-point year. He was one of the top point producers in the league, tied with Johnny Gaudreau, rest in peace, for second overall. Only Connor McDavid had more points than Jonathan Huberdeau that season. And the unfortunate part is, Huberdeau, $10.5 million a year till the end of 2031, he's a guy that if you say, all right, well, he's scoring 100 points a year, that's honestly fine, right? $10.5 million bucks a year for a guy who can get 115 points? Sign me up for that. But as you can see, his production upon getting traded to Calgary, it got cut in half. And then it pretty much stayed there. Meanwhile, the Florida Panthers, back-to-back Stanley Cup finalists and back-to-back champions, all without Jonathan Huberdeau. So, yeah, that's tough, eh? Huberdeau now is on pace for 38 points over 76 games, although he is going to miss the remainder of the season, I think it is. He's got to get surgery. He's only got half a point a game, but hey, he had a crazy good game against Edmonton. That's the best thing about his overall performance this season, right? But all Jonathan Huberdeau talk aside, the reason this relates to the Vancouver Canucks is because of what Craig Button said on Donnie and Dolly earlier yesterday. Elias Pettersson might be the Vancouver Canucks' Jonathan Huberdeau. His best days might be behind him, Button said on If the Olympics Can Jumpstart EP40. Now, the funny part is, if you head over to Donnie and Dolly's Twitter, there's a very particular poll that I wanted to showcase to y'all here. Essentially, the question is Elias Pettersson going to bounce back after the Olympic Games? 1,300 votes, and 84% of them say that he won't. For what it's worth, and for full transparency purposes, I also voted no, because I don't think Elias Pettersson is going to ever get back to 100-point form, 102 points in 80 games played, for a guy who, at the time, was 24 years old. The question is Pettersson going to get jump-started after the Olympics? Is the Olympic Games going to fix EP40? 84%, an overwhelming percentage of Canucks fans say that it won't. And the replies are pretty standard. Oh yeah, jumpstart. We're 3/4 of the way through the year, and Four Nations didn't do Petey any favors last year either. He has crappy, untalented wingers. He is not a play driver on his own. No way he starts to perform better until he is surrounded by better players. If the Four Nations didn't jumpstart EP, why would the Olympics? We are still holding out hope for our $11.6 million number one center. How many times is this regime going to hold out hope? If he does get his jumpstart, it's not happening in Vancouver anymore. He needs to go somewhere else and salvage his career. And the interesting thing about this is, of course, Pettersson is a polarizing name in this city, and believe it or not, I actually do have a social life outside of making YouTube videos, and whenever I talk with anybody in my circle of people that I'm around, meeting new folks and seeing new faces. Anytime the Canucks come up and anytime Elias Pettersson's name comes up, obviously he's the most expensive player on the team. He's a pretty notable person in this community. Most hockey and Canucks fans know who he is. The question always is, can he ever get back? Is he going to be the Jonathan Huberdeau of Vancouver, where he had an absolute standout best season type caliber kind of year, and then inevitably faded away? I say inevitably. It's not like Jonathan Huberdeau had his production cut in half over the course of one season. Wait a minute, that's exactly what happened. Never mind. Elias Pettersson did kind of fade away, if you wanted to use that kind of language here. 102 points to 89, which then got significantly reduced to 45. And now this season, he's on pace for 52. And that is still with 74 games played. So obviously, Pettersson, say what you want about him being on the worst team in the league, he still hasn't been that guy. And now we're debating amongst ourselves whether or not the Olympic Games can jumpstart this guy, whether or not he is doomed to being the Elias Pettersson whose mere existence and value to the Vancouver Canucks is just going to be to allow the team to hit the cap floor. That's all. If Vancouver goes out there and starts a fire sale, they trade away everybody, they gotta be cap compliant somehow. Pettersson's 11.6 helps them in that respect. I wanted to read an opinion from Sapster as well. Sap's a good buddy of mine. I don't know if he thinks that I'm a good buddy of his, but I consider him a friend. He's a very, very good NHL EA Sports player. He responded to the Craig Button clip of Pettersson potentially being the Canucks' Jonathan Huberdeau, saying this: assuming this is true, it would be a fall-off that would far surpass Huberdeau, bordering on historic. We have never seen a player with Elias Pettersson's level of U24 production fall off so quickly. That, combined with his line mates' lack of finishing, and his playstyle being that of efficiency, leads me to believe that even if he never scores 102 points again, Pettersson should be an 80 to 85 point elite defensive center in a good environment. Again, there's a reason smart teams, I'm going to assume he's referring to Carolina, want him. I hope he goes back to his old trainer and gets some agility back. Now, I think that's also an element of Elias Pettersson's profile that we haven't talked about too much on this channel, but it's one that I know Canucks fans in various parts of the fandom have brought up as well. Speed, agility, power. That's the name of the game for Elias Pettersson, right? Or at least once upon a time it was. Heading into the most previous summer and seeing Pettersson bulk up and gain 16 pounds or whatever it was, I forgot the exact number, but to see him get physically toned, either via muscle or via fat, you can say that a lot of the agility that Pettersson played with was gone. You could also say at the same time, hey, when Pettersson weighed 150 or 160 or whatever it was when he was a young player, he was getting shoved around and he would fall all the time. We called him Bambi because he's a long, lanky dude that just couldn't stay on his feet. But at this point, it's like, well, even if he was Bambi, he was still scoring 102 points in a season. He was still a point-per-game guy at 20 years old. He was still going out there and producing like crazy, even though he was thinner, skinnier, lankier, and easier to shove off the puck. He also drew a ton of penalties. I think he still does that now, but still, if Pettersson bulked up and really started to put all his emphasis on being a defensive center, I can respect that, but I can also understand why that could lead to the point production fall-off that we have seen. And if the long-term effects of that choice just end up being that Pettersson becomes the Jonathan Huberdeau of Vancouver, firstly, it's going to be very disappointing, but secondly, it's going to misleadingly tell a story that I don't think a lot of Canucks fans are going to remember fondly, despite it being maybe not as bad as it seems. Like, it's a good thing Pettersson chose this direction and he wanted to be defensively responsible, but at the lack of his offensive productivity, that's the big thing that everybody's going to look at and that everybody's going to remember. Pettersson made a choice. Doesn't look like it was the one that people would have wanted. With all that said, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about the idea of Petey becoming the next Jonathan Huberdeau? I hope you enjoyed this British Sign 9, and bye.